Is it a misunderstanding on my part if from this conversation thus far I'm taking away that SEAT only deals in beans? Full stop.
No, we call it the bean revolution because that was has been a big impact here. We also work on rice. We have worked a lot on grasses, very important. As Kenyans eat much more milk and meat these days, you will need better livestock, and better livestock will need better grasses. So we are working a lot on improving these grasses, which will help a lot the environment, and it will help a lot as new incomes are demanding better products. So it's forages, it's rice, it's beans, it's cassava, and of course we work a lot in linking farmers to markets. We work a lot in agronomy and soils and on climate change. So we have a broad range. It's quite a large institute with about 200 scientists, so we are working very well connected in these 4 or 5 major areas. They all connect each other. You cannot have only a new bean variety without good soils. You cannot have good soils and good beans without the policy. You cannot have that without the good agronomy around. So we are trying to connect because we are a tropical institute, tropical agricultural institute.
You mentioned the word rice there. Now, again, the common knowledge is that countries like India, China, rice is a big crop. It feeds lots and lots of people. Do you have enough understanding of our conditions to say whether rice could be a major source of livelihood for us Kenyans?
Yes, John. Rice today is feeding more than 1 billion people. More than 1 billion people on earth depend only on one crop, which is rice. And I don't live here now, but I see that Kenyans are eating much more rice. So I asked the same question.
Are we capable of producing it, more to the point?
You are. And there are very good examples of rice research going on. It's not yet as developed as we would like to, but there are new varieties and very good. For example, we are working with Brazil and China together on rice to how we can work those experiences and bring them to Africa. So I see rice as a major way forward for research and for production and hopefully for consumption in Kenya.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, but in the time that you've been here, have you read the Jubilee Manifesto?
Yes.
You have?
I have.
Right, okay, I'm going to ask you a question then if you read it. Good or bad?
Very good. Although I'm not a teacher to grade any government manifestos, but I have read the agricultural section, and I see there, I have worked 30 years in agriculture and rural development, and I see there exactly all the elements for success. I see.
But that manifesto has been criticized in Kenyan society as just being a copy and paste job. Every single political party is meant to have had saying the same things in a different way. So in other words, it may be wonderful on paper, Doctor, but can it be actually, is it feasible?
It is very feasible, and without getting into politics, you really need to know which elements are key. And that manifesto brings those priorities together. They talk about irrigation, and a major element in the manifesto is doubling or tripling the investments into agricultural research. You need researchers to do research. You cannot do research without researchers. And that manifesto is really pointing the finger that you need to increase the capacity, for instance, of the Kenyan Agricultural Research Institute and partners. So we see there the irrigation, we see the extension, we see the credit. Now, of course, to do that and implement that in a short term, that will be a big challenge.
And I would suggest it needs money. There's the horrible word, money.
It needs a big investment behind, and I think that investment is coming to implement that manifesto. It needs some institutional rearrangement, and I heard that that's coming too. The Kenya Agricultural Research Institute is growing. I heard that you need much more communication in rural areas, and I see these counties, how these counties are going to be organized.
So you've got no criticisms, nothing to warn us against, everything, as long as we follow this marvelous path, everything will be wonderful.
No, I don't have any criticism. While I'm here, and my main message is that we are here to help the government of Kenya implement the manifesto. We think it's very doable if we work all together.
Right, okay, so I'm going to ask you a step further. You were here when you, as a youngster, well, relatively.
I'm still young.
10 years from now, you come back. You're still Director General, more, President of the world. What would you expect to find in Kenya?
Well, I will expect to find many things, but one is very important, which is a vibrant commercial agricultural sector. So subsistence farmers will be much reduced, poverty will be reduced, and this is not a dream, this is doable. We have done it in other countries. I've seen in other countries. How to do this commercial vibrant agriculture? Back, you need to link these farmers to good markets. You have to have the right policies in place. You have to have seeds. You cannot produce any crop without seeds. You have to have a little more open borders, perhaps for seed trade. So in 10 years from now, I will see a much more vibrant commercial agriculture, much less poverty in Kenya, and I will see Kenya exporting food. It's doable in 10 years.
Right. I would like to draw you on another topic. You're the scientist, there is government. Which are the other partnerships that are critical to this rosy vision that you have for Kenyan agriculture?
It's a realistic vision. It could be rosy, but it's very realistic. Two other key partners, the civil society, very important, and the private sector.
Civil society, that's me.
The civil society, yes. The civil society is, for example, an NGO working in Machakos.
Right.
It's an NGO working in a county and translating all of this important information and research done in scientific centers into the into your mother's farm, into your village. NGOs play a very important role if they are really working not only in advocacy but working on the ground with farmers. The private sector, key player. So if you have the NGOs, which is to me a lot of civil society, if you have the public sector, the government, and if you have the private sector, that tripod, if they are well linked, that's a good winning team.
Right. I'm going to take you on another line of thinking. You've said all these things before, but now I'm trying to suggest to you that they won't happen, because you've said we will enhance productivity through improved crop management and soil fertility. Doctor, how do you train people to improve things? I always get rather cynical when people say we will improve.
Okay, well, one way of training people is to see what farmers do, because farmers are the real survivors in this scheme. They may have not read the manifesto, but they are the ones who can combine the sun, the water, the soil, their family, their demands, the markets, the seeds, into something that is really going forward. So I will say this realistic picture is coming by seeing what farmers, we just were there on Saturday. Perhaps one day we can go together. Right. Let's go to Machakos and see how these farmers, with these bean varieties and new grasses, are really improving. They are much better fed, well dressed. The farmers, the neighbors are coming. And the neighbors will always listen much better to the neighbors than to us. So I think it's very doable, and it's not a picture that we have in documents in offices. It's really happening right here. It's happening in Kenya.
Climate change is a word that you brought up earlier on in our conversation. Yeah. Again, I will be the naysayer, I will be the devil's advocate, and say the changes that the world is going through are such that even the farmers don't know what they're doing because they can't predict anything. Climate change and science. Any comments on that?
Yes. Many people are working on climate change, and working in climate change means how to adapt crops and people for the future change. And the future change will be very simple: 2-3 degrees centigrade higher, a little more warmer, and it will be the pattern of rains will change. As we know, it's changing. The rainy season will shift. So what that means, what that really means in reality is that the growing season of a crop will be shorter. So we need to produce the crops that are going to be fast enough running this marathon. And I am in Kenya, I am in the marathon country. These new crops are going to run faster and to grow in a shorter term. That's all it means. It's not very rocket science. It's how to adapt these plants to a little higher temperatures and to different rain patterns. And there is a lot of work on that. It's a huge challenge, but it's not the end of the world. It could be done. The Earth has changed climates many times, many millions of years ago. So it's changing again, and we should invest in these issues instead of discussing things that we know are already okay.
Right. Okay. This is the very last question. Perhaps it's personal, because you've come here to see what's happening in this neck of the Siat Woods. and you've come here for a board meeting. What's the takeaway from your particular discussion? Because we saw the long term. Yeah. What do you wish to be achieved before you come back and we meet again and talk again, hopefully?
I hope we can do that. I have seen in the last couple of years a huge expansion of enthusiasm in my team. We have a team here of 150 people, 85% Africans. Remember, our home is Kenya, and we like the home. So I need to thank you and the rest of the Kenyan family and the government for hosting us here. So I see a happy team working on applied research to solve problems. We want to have results. We are not only writing academic papers, we really want to have these results. So when I come back, I would like to have that team even better integrated, going out to the field, reaching these partnerships, and we would like to grow. We would like to have more researchers to really be looking very hard on how to get those results even faster than we think.
Dr. Ruben Echeverria, Agricultural Science Leader, Director General of the International Center for Tropical Agriculture. Thank you so very much for coming on
a pleasure to be here.
Interview. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.